So if you spent, any time at all trying to buy a house in California over the last, say, 10 years,
Oh, at least.
you have probably hit the same massive concrete wall that pretty much everyone else hits.
Mm-hmm.
You're scrolling through the listings, you torture yourself with the mortgage calculator, and then you realize something pretty painful.
You realize that the monthly payment is scary, sure, but the real dream killer is the cash you need to close.
Exactly. The down payment, it is the great filter.
It really is.
You can have a good job, solid credit, and you're still years, maybe even a decade, away from having $100,000 just sitting in a savings account.
Just to get your foot in the door. It's the single biggest barrier to entry in the California market.
Which is why we're seeing so much noise right now about the return of the California Dream for All program.
Right. And the headlines make it sound amazing.
Oh, yeah. If you just read the headlines, it sounds like Oprah's handing out houses, free money. The state buys your house.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, we're cynical people here on the deep dive. When I hear government program and free money in the same sentence, I immediately check for my wallet.
As you should. There is no such thing as a free lunch, especially not in California real estate.
So that's our mission today. We're going to cut through all the hype.
We need to.
We've got a stack of sources, official press releases from CalHFA, some really detailed breakdowns from mortgage experts like Adam Heaney and Kate and Del Rosario, plus some updates from the California Dream for All channel.
And we're going to figure out, is this actually a good deal? What's the catch?
And most importantly, because the timeline is just terrifyingly short, is it already too late for you to apply?
That last point is actually where we have to start. Because while everyone is arguing about the philosophy of the program, they're missing the logistics. The timeline for this 2026 rollout it's incredibly tight.
I saw the dates in the CalHFA release. The application portal opens February 24, 2026.
Yeah.
And it closes on March 16, 2026. That is what, like 3 weeks?
Barely. It's a sprint. And this is where people get tripped up.
How so?
They think, okay, the portal opens on the 24th. That's when I'll start calling lenders. If you do that...
You've already lost.
You've likely already lost, yeah. Because of the pre-approval requirement?
Right. To even get into the lottery, and it is a lottery, not first come, first served, you have to upload a specific Dream for All pre-approval letter.
A specific one. From a state-approved lender. You can't just use a generic, congrats, your pre-qualified letter you got from your bank app.
And getting that specific letter, that's not an instant process.
Not at all. The lender has to pull your credit, they have to verify all your income documents, and you have to complete these mandatory education courses.
I saw there's 2 of them, right?
2. And Adam Heaney's analysis was pretty blunt about this. He warned that lenders are going to be absolutely swamped.
I can only imagine.
If you aren't already in their queue, now they might physically not have time to process your file before that March 16th cutoff.
Fortune favors the prepared. That was the quote that stuck out to me.
It's so true. There is, somewhere between $150 and $200 million available.
In a state with 40 million people.
It's a drop in the bucket. The demand is going to dwarf the supply. So step 1 is just realizing this isn't something you can mull over for a month.
Okay, so let's assume someone listening is ready to move fast. Let's unpack the actual mechanism. What exactly is the state offering here? Because a shared appreciation loan sounds complicated.
It does, but it's actually a very clever piece of financial engineering. The state gives you a loan for 20% of the home's purchase price.
Or appraised value.
Or appraised value, whichever is lower. And there's a hard cap on that assistance at $150,000.
Okay, so if I'm buying a $750,000 house, 20% is exactly $150,000. The state just wires that to the closing table.
Essentially, yes. But calling it a loan is almost misleading because it doesn't behave like any debt you've ever had. It's a silent second lying in.
I love that term, silent second.
It means it doesn't talk to you. You don't pay a dime on that $150,000 while you live in the house. No interest accrues in the traditional sense where your balance gets bigger every month.
It just sits there.
It just sits there, dormant, right behind your main mortgage.
So I take the money, I buy the house, and I just ignore the state's 20% stake.
Yeah.
Until when?
Until you sell the home or refinance the first mortgage.
With some exceptions.
Yeah, right, with some exceptions. Or you pay off the loan, usually at the 30-year mark. That's the moment of reckoning. That's when the shared appreciation part kicks in.
This is the catch.
This is the cost of doing business. When you exit, you pay back the original $150,000 principal, but you also pay the state 20% of the appreciation, the growth in the home's value.
Okay, I want to pause and really drill down on that math. Because I think This is where the state owns your house panic comes from.
It is.
They are not taking 20% of the future sale price, are they?
No, and that distinction is absolutely critical. They take 20% of the gain. Let's run a simple scenario just to make it concrete.
Okay.
Let's say you buy a home for $500,000 using this program. You live there for 5 years, the market does its thing, and you sell it for $600,000.
So it went up by 100 grand.
100 grand. So you pay back the original loan you borrowed for the down payment.
Which was 100,000 in this case, 20% of 500.
Right. Then you look at that $100,000 profit. The state takes 20% of that, which is $20,000.
And I keep the other 80% of the profit.
You keep the other $80,000 plus all the principal you paid down on your main mortgage over those 5 years.
You know, one of our sources used the analogy of a silent investor.
That's the perfect way to think about it.
Like if I started a tech company and an investor put up 20% of the seed money, of course they'd expect 20% of the profit when I sell.
It's an equity partnership. And here's the flip side. What if the market crashes? What if you sell the home for exactly what you paid for it?
I assume I still owe the principal.
You owe the principal, but you owe zero appreciation because there was no gain.
So they share in the wreck.
You share the upside and they share the downside risk. If the value goes down, they don't come after you for the loss. You just settle the original debt.
Okay, conceptually I get it. I'm trading future upside for access today. But let's play devil's advocate. Why would I do this? Why give up 20% of my future wealth?
Is the monthly savings really that big?
Yeah, is it really significant enough to justify handing over that much equity?
That is the million-dollar question. And we looked at a breakdown from Kate and Del Rosario, who ran the numbers, and honestly, the difference is staggering. It changes the equation from, like, impossible to comfortable.
Okay, walk us through the comparison.
So let's take that same $750,000 home. In a traditional market, a first-time buyer might, if they're lucky, scrape together a 5% down payment.
So about $37,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is already a huge amount of money for most families to have liquid.
Huge.
But because you're only putting 5% down, your loan amount is massive. Plus, you're stuck paying private mortgage insurance, PMI, because you don't have 20% equity.
Right.
In that scenario, Del Rosario estimates the monthly payment at roughly $5,300.
Ouch. $5,300. That's painful. That's eating ramen every night and never taking a vacation territory.
Exactly. Now, swap in the dream for all. You use the state's $150,000 to put 20% down.
Okay.
Suddenly, your loan amount shrinks, your interest rate might be better, and the magic part. Because you have 20% equity, the PMI just vanishes completely.
And the payment drops to?
Around $4,400.
Whoa. So you are saving $900 a month.
Every single. That's almost $11,000 a year in realized cash flow.
Yeah.
That is the difference between being house poor and actually being able to afford daycare or fix a leaky roof or just breathe.
And it's not just the monthly payment, right? We have to talk about the cash to close.
This is the part people overlook. In that traditional 5% down scenario, you don't just need the down payment. You need closing costs, title, escrow, taxes. You might need $50,000 cash to actually get the keys.
Wow.
But with Dream for All, the program lets you use up to 5% of that assistance amount to cover those closing costs.
So practically speaking, how much cash do I need to have in the bank to buy that $750,000 house?
It could drop your out-of-pocket to something like $23,000.
You're cutting the barrier to entry in half.
And cutting the monthly burden by nearly 20%, it's a game changer.
Okay, so the financial argument is strong. If you can stomach sharing the future profit, the immediate lifestyle benefit is huge. But obviously the state isn't just handing this out to anyone. They have tightened the rules significantly for 2026.
They have. They're trying to solve an equity problem, not just a housing problem. And the biggest gatekeeper is the definition of first-generation homebuyer.
Which sounds simple. My parents didn't own a home, but the sources suggest it's more nuanced this year.
It is. Obviously, you, the applicant, can't have owned a home in the last 7 years. But the rule about your parents has actually become looser.
Wow.
Or at least more practical. Previously, there was a 10-year look-back period for parents. If your parents owned a home any time in the last decade, you were disqualified.
Okay.
Now, for 2026, the rule is just that your parents cannot currently own a home.
Wait, really? So if my parents owned a home, say, 4 years ago, sold it because they retired or hit hard times and are now renting, I qualify as first generation.
According to the new guidelines, yes.
That's a massive shift.
It is. It accounts for families who may have lost wealth or had to downsize. It opens the door for a lot of people who were previously locked out.
And I noticed another specific carve-out regarding foster care.
Yes, this is important. If you have ever been in foster care or institutional care, you automatically qualify as first generation. It doesn't matter what your biological parents own or don't own.
So the state is explicitly trying to level the playing field for people who grew up with systemic instability. That's a really important piece of policy.
Yeah.
But let's look at the financial hard stops. The income limits are strictly enforced, right?
Strictly. It varies by county. In Los Angeles, it's around $168,000. In Santa Clara, it's over $300,000 because, Silicon Valley. But there's no wiggle room.
And the credit score?
680, that is the magic number. Kate and Del Rosario really emphasize this. If you have a 679, you are out.
No exception.
No manual underwriting exception. If you have a lower income, like under 80% of the area median income, you can slide in with a 660. But for most people, 680 is the floor.
Okay, let's assume I qualify. I'm first gen, my credit is good, I'm ready to go. How do I actually get the money? You mentioned a lottery earlier.
Yes. It's a randomized drawing. You apply during that window, Feb 24 to March 16, and then they just draw names. But it's not a pure random draw. They're weighting it for geographic equity, meaning they don't want, say, Sacramento or Placer County taking all the funds just because they have more prepared buyers or a lower home price.
They want to spread it out.
Right. They want to ensure money goes to the Bay Area, SoCal, the Central Valley. And specifically, 10% is mandated for what they call qualified census tracts.
Okay, a balanced lottery. Now, I want to pivot to strategy. We're deep diving here, so I want to get into the advanced stuff that wasn't in the press release headlines.
Good.
We found a really interesting point from one of the sources about paying off the loan early.
This is my favorite counterintuitive insight, because your instinct as a responsible adult is usually debt is bad, pay it off.
Right. If I get a bonus or an inheritance, I should pay down that $150,000 second mortgage to get the state off my back.
And mathematically, that is a terrible idea.
Why? That makes no sense.
It's because of how the appreciation share is calculated. Remember, the cost of this loan is 20% of the home's growth. That amount is tied to the value of the home when you eventually settle up.
Okay.
If you pay the principal down early, you still owe that same 20% share of the appreciation when you sell.
So sending the state a check for $50,000 today doesn't reduce the amount of appreciation I owe them later.
Zero. It saves you nothing. In fact, it hurts you.
How?
Because you just took $50,000 of your liquid cash, which could be earning 5% in a high-yield savings account, or be used to pay down your first mortgage, which is actually charging you interest, and you locked it away in a 0% loan.
You're basically giving the state an interest-free loan at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The advice was clear. Ignore the silent second. Put your money to work elsewhere. Treat the state like a partner who's crashing on your couch and not asking for rent. Don't wake them up until you have to.
That requires a real shift in mindset. Here's another snag that caught my eye. New construction.
Ah, yes.
Everyone wants a brand new house, but the sources say this program can fight with the builder incentives.
It's a classic choose your fighter scenario. Builders want to sell houses, so they offer massive incentives.
Like use our internal lender and we'll give you a 4.5% interest rate.
Or $20,000 in design center upgrades. It sounds great.
It does sound great.
But here's the rub. Dream for All requires you to use a CalHFA approved lender and, crucially, CalHFA's specific interest rates. The builder's lender might not be approved, or their special 4.5% rate might be tied to a loan product that isn't compatible with the state program.
So you can't double dip. You can't get the builder's cheap rate A&D, the state's down payment.
Rarely. You have to run the math. Is the builder's lower interest rate worth more over 30 years than the state's $150,000 down payment assistance?
And usually the 150K wins.
Usually, yeah, because it eliminates PMI and lowers the principal so much, but it means you have to walk away from the builder's shiny incentives.
That is a tough pill to swallow when you're standing in the model home looking at the granite countertops.
It is, but you have to look at the long-term math.
One last loophole I want to touch on: living trusts. A listener asked if they can protect the home for their family using a trust.
You can, but it gets tricky if you have a non-borrowing spouse.
A non-borrowing spouse? You mean like if my husband has terrible credit, so I just leave him off the loan?
Exactly. Let's say your spouse has a credit score 500 or a ton of debt. So you leave them off the application to qualify. You can put the house in a trust.
Yeah.
But CalHFA rules say that the non-borrowing spouse cannot have control of that trust while the borrower is alive.
Oh, wow. So they are really trying to prevent straw buyer situations where you use one person's clean credit to get the money, but someone else actually runs the show.
Precisely. The borrower must maintain control.
Okay, we've covered the mechanics, the math, the eligibility, and the traps. Let's zoom out. Who is the ideal avatar for this program?
It's for the person who needs stability now. If you're a first-generation buyer, you plan to stay in the home for at least, say, 7 to 10 years.
A long-term hold.
A long-term hold. And you have the income to support a mortgage, but you just haven't been able to save that massive lump sum. This is your golden ticket.
And who should run away from this?
A speculator. If you think you're going to buy, renovate, and flip it 2 years, the math will destroy you.
It won't work out.
It won't. You won't have paid down enough principal on the first mortgage, and the state's cut of the appreciation plus all the closing costs will eat every penny of your profit. You're basically working for free for the state.
It really reframes the whole concept of home ownership. You know, we're so used to my home is my castle and I own it all.
Right.
But this is my home is our castle and the state owns the East Wing.
It is. And CalHFA is actually very explicit about the goal here. They call it a cycle of wealth.
What do they mean by that?
The idea is that when you sell your home in 2036 and you write that check for the appreciation share, that money doesn't disappear into the general budget.
It goes back into the fund.
It goes right back into the Dream for All fund to finance the next generation of first-time buyers.
So my appreciation pays for someone else's down payment down the road.
It's a self-sustaining ecosystem, but it leaves us with a provocative question. By participating in this, we are effectively making the state of California a permanent equity holder in the residential housing market.
A permanent partner.
As these loans recycle, the state essentially owns a 20% stake in thousands and thousands of homes across California.
That's a heavy thought. It's like,
Yeah.
are we solving the housing crisis or are we just changing who owns the equity, is giving up 20% of your family's future wealth? Is that a fair price to pay just to get a foot in the door?
It's a compromise. It is definitely a compromise, but for the family saving $900 a month and finally getting the keys to a front door, I think the answer for them is usually, where do I sign?
I think you're right. Just make sure you read the fine print before you pick up the pen.
Always read the fine print.
And if you are listening to this and you think you qualify, stop listening and call a lender. February 24th is closer than you think.
Get in the queue now.
That is our deep dive on the California Dream for All. Good luck to everyone entering the lottery. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.